Hey everybody, in this video we're going to be making a logo for our photography business. Normally you would do this in Adobe Illustrator, but because this class uses Photoshop, we're going to be doing this in Photoshop today. So I've got Photoshop open. I'm going to click on the Create New button. You might not see the Create New button if you have other pictures open. If you do have other pictures open and you want to create a new document, something from scratch, you can do the same thing by hitting File and then hitting New, and that will pull up the same dialog box. I'm going to click on the Art and Illustration button right here and then click on the 2000 pixel grid and hit Create. That will give me a white square on which I can create my photography logo. Your logo needs to include both type and a graphic elements like a shape. Think of a camera or a line or a box or something along those lines. So I am going to go to my type tool, which is this guy right here, and I am going to click and we're going to type out a word. Let's change our font size. That's a little bit large, still pretty big. Let's try 80. 80 works pretty well. So I'll just type out my name. There we go. If you want to make it bigger, you can highlight it and change it right there, or you can also hit Control T to change the size later. If you don't like the font, remember that you can highlight it and then click right here in your context menu and hover over the fonts until you find one that you like. If you don't like any, you can click this Add Fonts from Typekit button, which will pull up Adobe Typekit, where you can log in. It might have you log in and search and find and install fonts that you like or want to use. Let's say that I liked this font. I can view it and then install it just by clicking this Activate button. And then I could now go back to Photoshop and that one should be there. Just got a little notification that says it's activated. I think that was like called Tiptoteca or something along those lines. Let's scroll down and see what we can find. See if it's there. It's in here somewhere. We might not be able to find it for now. You can search it, but I don't want you guys to have to sit through me searching for fonts. So we're just going to go with a font for now. Let's try something simple. You want your font to, the style of your font, the way that it looks, to kind of match the type of photography that your business will be doing. So if you're going to be doing like wedding photography, you might want to have something a little more flowery. Whereas if you're going to be doing like band or concert photography, you might want to have something that matches the style of music that you're going to be shooting. So just think about that and make the look of your logo match the look and feel of your brand. So I've got my first name here. We're going to click and add out another thing. Now I'll type out my last name. By the way, if I didn't want to just change all these settings that way again, I could have also held down the Alt key, dragged off a copy, and it has now all the exact same settings as my other one over there. Let's see if we can size this down. I'm trying to get everything to match up. Surprisingly, the M does not perfectly match with the W. Okay. So I've got my first and my last name there. Trying to get them to line up pretty well. And then I'm going to get the word photography, which we could maybe we'll keep this over here. Always a good idea to maybe just have a couple different designs of your logo to see what you like. Whenever you're dragging things around in Photoshop, Adobe will give you these little magenta lines. These are called guidelines or smart guides that show you how your different parts of your document line up with one another. And we're going to add in the word photography. Can move it down here to the bottom. And we can see what this would look like maybe with a different font. So we can highlight it, maybe cycle through some fonts up here. Find one that matches well with one that we've already got. Actually kind of like the looks of that, but it is a little too large, so let's shrink it down. So now we've got two different fonts combined. Normally you want to keep it in that category. Don't ever use more than 3 fonts in any one design. Keep in mind you can move these around with your Move tool, which is the top tool in your toolbar. If you want to move other layers, you just click on the layer you want to move, and then you can move it on its own. You can also hold Control, select multiple layers, and then use the Move tool to move them all together. So I've got that right there. I'm now going to go to the internet, and we're going to search for, let's search for a camera icon. Or we could also search the word camera vector to see what pops up too. So we're just trying to find something that we can use for free. So I'm going to hit Tools, change the size to large, and change the usage rights to labeled for reuse with modifications. That means something that other people are going to allow us to use for free. Normally you want to keep it pretty basic, nothing too colorful for your logo. Black and white is a good place to start, and then you can go back and add in color after the fact. Let's see, I'm trying to find something that suits me. And once again, remember to keep your graphic element to match the theme of your brand. Think about the type of photography that you're doing and then make it match that. And your brand name doesn't have to be like your name dash photography. You can come up with an actual real name for it as well. Let's see. Let's just try, just to keep it simple, this guy. So we are going to copy it, come back over here to Photoshop, Control V to paste it, move it to where you want it to go, shrink it down how you want it, and we'll just place that maybe right here in the middle. So this is, it's getting to be a little bit busy for me, but I'm showing you how you could include a graphic element. We could, if we didn't want that, we could poke out the eyeball of that, and maybe we want to make a square around it instead. I could use the rectangle tool right here, click and drag a little outline around it. So what it did is it filled it in with the color. I don't want it to fill it in, so I'm going to click on the little lavender color there and click on this red line with a slash so that now there's nothing. But what I do want is I want to have a black outline. An outline in Photoshop is called your stroke. So I'm going to click here on the stroke, set it to black, and then I'm going to increase the size over here until I get it just about where I want it to be. So I'm pretty happy with that. Now maybe we could add back in the camera. Maybe we'll put it down here at the bottom. Let's make sure it's kind of centered. And what we could do is maybe we could put a little bit of a white space around it. I'm going to move that up until it's kind of in the center. If you want it just like that, that's fine too. Or we could go down to the rectangle, add a mask, and just paint out that little portion right there. So we can kind of just select it. And in the mask, we can now paint black and get rid of it. So there we go. We've got our little photography logo there. I always suggest if you're working on something like that to save it as a PSD so that you can go back and edit it later in case you ever want to change your logo. And if you're saving it to be done with it, you want to get rid of the background. I'm also going to get rid of that little white space around the edges of the camera icon so we can come back to our camera icon. I'm going to use my magic wand tool to select the parts that we want. Hit the mask button, it will get rid of everything else. If we save this as a JPEG, it would automatically add the white background on it. You don't want a white background with your logo. So when I go to save as, I'm going to save it as instead a PNG file. So it ends in .png. That will keep your transparency. It'll have a transparent background for you. So I can save this into my pictures folder. We'll say Will Milne Photography Logo .png. And we'll just click OK when this pops up. And we would be good to go. This is my logo. It's got some type. It's got a little graphic element. It's pretty simple. Now that you've designed it, you could go back in and add some color to give it a little bit of a pop if you wanted to. I'm not super happy with this one. It's mostly just my last name over there that is kind of throwing me off. So I would probably go back and change a couple of things, but that's how you would do this in Photoshop.